I'm about to let go of my child. I have an only child who's heading off to college, and I'm looking for my own kind of rebirth of sorts, but also my ability. There's a part of me that thinks in terms of like ageism. Oh God, I'm of this certain time, also not 1950s, but in my 50s. And I look now to Rose and to the story that Amy and Dan have written for not just my character, but pretty much every one of the female characters. And there's always room to sort of say it's not too late.
But I think the last acceptable prejudice is ageism, particularly for women, that we become less and less valuable as we get older because our currency has been in our youth and in our attractiveness. And yet we all know as women, we have so many resources inside of us that people are not exploiting to the good of society.
But the truth is, you didn't even have room to ever say or think, well, that character should deepen. But they didn't even let that character inside the house. And I think back, and I think I've been so spoiled now. It will be interesting when and if this show were to end. I pray I will not necessarily be a like retreated female character that only really has sometimes one main color.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vidrani, and welcome to Speak Easy. Today, I have the women who are fascinating, and they add so much more color to the marvelous Mrs. Maisel's life. I'm talking about the women who are amazing. Marin and Caroline, hello. Welcome to Zoom TV India.
Hello and welcome. Hi, it's nice to see you.
Marin, this question is for you.
Sure.
I was so excited to see the turn that she has, your character Rose has in season 3. For me, she revolting when she didn't get a seat on the board. For me, was a moment that I cherished so much. I hope this happens more. I hope there are these moments where she realizes that she's so much more. It's so much more difficult for women in the 50s, though, right?
Yes.
It's interesting. What do you think of that, Marin? On all that?
I loved it. I'm about to let go of my child. I have an only child who's heading off to college, and I'm looking for my own kind of rebirth of sorts, but also my ability. There's a part of me that thinks in terms of like ageism. Oh God, I'm of this certain time, also not 1950s, but in my 50s. And I look now to Rose and to the story that Amy and Dan have written for not just my character, but pretty much every one of the female characters. And there's always room to sort of say it's not too late. It's not too late to sort of redefine and to in a particular era in which you had definition sort of like asserted upon you to say, sorry, not doing it that way, doing it my own way. So I love this part of Rose, and I love that she says no to her family money and actually says, all right, I'm going to go forth because I don't want any of that to burden me. And I love that in terms of her frustration with Abe, rather than say to him, you're not allowed to leave your job at the Columbia, she lets him, of course, say, all right, I'll be the breadwinner then for a while, or the major breadwinner. So I just love what they've written for her that way. Never would have predicted it in season 1, but each time they write something like that, I say, yes, dig deeper into that. I'm so excited.
This question is for the both of you. You mentioned ageism and about how it's the roles for women when they reach a certain age are so stereotypical and they are so enclosed, and the experimentation reduces. And this happens majorly with women. What do you think of the times that we live today, Marin? And what do both of you think about that?
Caroline, do you want to answer first since you haven't spoken to that
Well,
yet?
yes, I think the last acceptable prejudice, especially because we're at a time right now of reckoning the ways in which we have left out groups of people and what their value is within a society. But I think the last acceptable prejudice is ageism, particularly for women, that we become less and less valuable as we get older because our currency has been in our youth and in our attractiveness. And yet we all know as women, we have so many resources inside of us that people are not exploiting to the good of society. And it takes a lot of courage to not be restricted and to not take on that sense of, I'm now invisible, I'm now not valuable anymore because I'm not young. And I think that once we access the power of women at all ages, the world will change. I really do.
Yeah, I think a lot about motherhood. And as I said, not only am I a mother, but Caroline's been lucky enough to also be a mother, and we're playing these mothers. And I believe that if you can raise children, you can kind of do anything.
Right.
And I mean, maybe that's an overstatement perhaps, but it is such an extraordinary surprise and challenge and delight and most meaningful thing. But I do think that, like, a lot of my female friends, just speaking from where I am, are so frightened to say, "Oh my God, if the children are gone, where am I?" And I think that the answer is, I've just figured out so much. If I've given life and birth to supporting someone, then I can accomplish so much that I never even thought possible.
When I used to watch Two and a Half Men, I used to feel that I wish there was so much more they would do for Judith as a character. And I feel
Hmm.
today, and also the show, I feel is from a male gaze. So, you see the character like that. And when I see a show like this, where you see women, even in the 1950s, has so much more agency. I can't help comparing that. And even though I felt it was so unfair for Judith because I thought she was so interesting as a character, they could
Lovely.
have done so much more. What
Thank
do you
you
think
for saying
about
that. It's funny, you get used to, as an actor, so often you're just so incredibly appreciative of whatever job you get. And I was so incredibly appreciative. I got to get home. I went to a job. I came home to my child. But the truth is, you didn't even have room to ever say or think, well, that character should deepen. But they didn't even let that character inside the house. And I think back and I think, I've been so spoiled now. It will be interesting when and if this show were to end. I pray I will not necessarily be a like retreated female character that only really has sometimes one main color, because Amy and Dan have spoiled us to understanding that there's like the whole color of the rainbow that every single gender gets.
Yeah.
So well put. Yeah, but totally unfair. Also, like, I'm sure she had a job, but they never mentioned what her job was. It just
Well,
annoys me.
funny that you asked that, because at one point I think they thought in the past that she had a job, but there was so much else that they were delving into that they sort of just omitted that. But I created like my secret job. But that's lovely. Thank you for bringing that up, because that was a complicated thing sometimes to
Yeah.
want to offer more, and there wasn't necessarily the dialogue in which to do it. And Amy and Dan constantly do the opposite. They surprise me with parts of my character that I never dreamed would be there. I mean, and the voice to actually argue with people in a way that I myself don't usually find voice to. She's much stronger than I am, and she inspires me that way.
You have to
I
remember
think both of
during the 1950s, women went from their parents' house to their husband's house. They never had that experience of living with their peer group and finding out who they were outside of the institution of the family they came from or the family they made. They never had that time. And I think it's sort of amazing how much, Martin and I are both very lucky. We both had working mothers. I was the only person I knew growing up whose mother worked, but it's wonderful to have a great example. And I'm so excited that this show can be an example for young women. I think that's
I said earlier that it's also been delightful to watch our different younger generation, which I'm going to epitomize with Rachel Brosnahan. I see what she's like on set. She has got a system working, not just this extraordinary role she's playing, but she's got all these pieces of work that she's developing into film and television, and taking books that she falls in love with. And she is a kind of inspiration to me, but also to her generation. But I think that generation is in you, because I can tell you're a very young woman. I bet you are doing so much more than what I thought was possible at your age. So you guys are inspiring us.
yes.
But like I just want to add, I know I have to wrap, and unfortunately, I have so much more questions for the two of you. All amazing women. I just want to say, I don't think we'd be able to walk if you guys wouldn't have done it first. So I think women, you all are way more stronger, and the kind of roles that you're choosing, I think, says a lot. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
So
being such a
much.
beautiful interviewer. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Lots of love, Carolyn and Marion.
Love to you.
Yes,
too.
you
Thank
stay safe.
you.